Okay, Chip. Let's go ahead and start talking about rotations. So if you don't know, rotations in other card games are very common. Specifically like Magic the Gathering in Hearthstone. And it usually involves older content or older cards being rotated out of the playable meta, right? So in MTG, this usually is in the form of like cards that were printed more than like 2 years ago or something like that, just aren't playable in the competitive format. I think that Hearthstone does something similar. So a lot of people have been talking about rotation in Legend of Runeterra, where Riot has said that they are going to be doing rotation at some point, and have confirmed it as well as given us a little bit of insight as to what they're looking at for rotation. And that's what this Reddit post out. That's from an Reddit AMA with Dave Tron. Dave Tron is what is Dave Tron's? What's his thing, chat? Does anyone know? Oh, Dave Guskin. Let's go take a peek. Dave Tron is the executive producer and game director for Legend and Terra. Homies in charge. Homies in charge. So this was from an AMA from earlier today. Let's go just take a peek. This is in response to a question asking about rotation. He's saying, great question. I do understand there's concern about the idea of rotation, so I wanted to get a bit of the design thinking out there. Also, before I get into rotation specifically, I want to take a step back and say we as a dev team have a vision. We want to build with you, our core LoR audience, and make LoR the best game it can be. It includes more touch points to gather feedback from the community early enough to let it help guide what we make, and going to be more experimental in the future and more adaptive to what's working and what isn't. Baby steps rather than monolithic, huge reveals. It sounds like a good thing. This sounds like a good thing that Riot is looking to gauge community response to rotation so that we can help shape it, right? They want to create a game that we are happy to play and that we're happy about the direction it's going with. So like this sounds good. This sounds pretty good. Let's go ahead and take a peek at what the rest is. Okay, so rotation, what's the deal? We are curating a list of cards to rotate out rather than doing entire expansions. This list does include champions and their support packages. We're going to support the non-rotated format as a fully fledged format, so you still have a place to play with your favorites. And that will always include the Path of Champions. We're still working out the details of that support. We're going to rotate cards out and maybe back in regularly, but not too often. Exact cadence also to be determined. I hope that answers your questions. So basically saying that, MTG has a thing where, basically anything that's older than 2 years old, unplayable, right? It's just rotating out full sets. Whereas that's not going to happen. They aren't going to be rotating out full sets. They're going to make a specific list of cards that are going to be rotated out. And then there's going to be a separate format where you will always be able to play them. So my concerns, and there's quite a few people who've brought up concerns with this. My main concerns is it feels like they're trying to give us an idea of rotation and like what their design thinking is without really giving us a ton of what rotation's actually going to look like. Yeah. So I think that when you're doing something like rotation, it's important to have a reason why you're doing rotation, right? Whether that is feeling like you don't want to power creep the game too much, right? Or you want to rotate out specific staple cards that feel like they define the game and, get a fresh twist on the game. Or you feel like some cards are so limiting in their design space that you won't be able to print other cards later down the line. For instance, something like timelines maybe like is so limiting because you have to design every single card that comes out with it in mind. My main worries would be that I can give you reasons why there would be rotation. Several people can, especially people who have been a part of other communities, but Riot doesn't seem to have given us an idea of what they're going to be rotating or why they're going to be rotating it, especially when we start talking about rotating out champions. I think that champions are really integral to LoR, especially to a lot of people because LoR is sort of built up on the League IP, right? And this is an IP that people have been playing for, 10 plus years, right? Like I've been playing League of Legends games. I've been playing Riot games for like literally 10 years. So when a lot of people are really interested in these champions and they play the game for these champions, when you start talking about rotating champions out of, like the competitive queue or the main queue, I think that that's kind of scary for a lot of people. I think it's really scary for a lot of people. Especially because when they come in and say stuff like, we're going to support the non-rotated format as a fully fledged format, it's very unclear what that actually means. Like, is this just going to be an alternate queue that you can just queue up and, play literally anything? Is this, something that's actually going to have like competitive support? Is it just going to be like incredibly casual, right? Like it's very unclear what Riot's plan is with this, which I think is scaring a lot of people, or more importantly, people are just sort of assigning their own definition of what rotation is to it, and then they're just saying like, this is what I think rotation is going to be, so that's what we should assume. And we're having like so many conversations about it where people are like, some people genuinely think that like rotation is going to fix Vladimir. They're like, bro, my Vladimir's finally going to be playable because they're going to rotate out all these other cards. And I think that's cope as hell. There are some people that are like, okay, well, if they rotate out Ezreal, maybe they're going to release a new Ezreal on the exact same date that does a different thing, and it's just giving them a chance to reprint cards. And it's like, I don't know if that's the case. It feels like we don't have a lot of information on what's actually happening here, right? So I ended up tweeting out about how this seems like it's just a ban list. It's not really a rotation. It feels like it's very much a curated ban list. I think that rotation oftentimes is being used in like Hearthstone and MTG to like rotate out entire sets. And if we're like curating specific lists of cards that we just don't want to be playable in this format, it feels like a ban list. And if we're doing this sort of rotation, if we're doing this sort of ban list, I wonder why we're doing this instead of just balancing these cards, right? Because it feels like the way that we have been doing this up to this point is if there's a problematic card like 3/3 Draven, it's being nerfed down to being a 3/2, so it's still playable. People can still play their favorite champion in their favorite game in these decks and still have a good time with that, right? Whereas it sounds like in the future, maybe 3/3 Draven just gets removed from the game. Maybe it just gets completely removed from the game and it gets pushed into this side queue that they're going to support as a fully fledged format. Except, to be honest with you, if it's not competitive, I just don't care. It might as well be being removed from the game, right? Like, I would very much rather play 3/2 Draven than have 3/3 Draven in, the fucking casual queue, the normals queue, or whatever. It's a very weird thing to me that they are preferring this rotation or this ban list format instead of just balancing the cards we have here. And again, this is me going off talking about like, potential reasons that Riot is doing this. But at the end of the day, we don't actually know why Riot is doing this. We don't know what their plan is behind rotation, because up to this point, the communication on it has been incredibly, not very specific. It seems, very high view. They aren't really giving us much insight here, right? And because of that, a lot of people are very confused and are just sort of assigning their own thoughts to it. So here's my thing, right? I think that Riot needs to tell us what their goals are for rotation, and what they see rotation as, and why we're doing rotation. Because I think that until we get there a certain amount of until we get like the base of what Riot is looking to do, until we get like what their motivations are and what they want to do with rotation, I don't think that we can really talk about like what sort of changes are going to be made or what changes should be made, because we don't even know why Riot's doing it. If they came out and said, we want to rotate old staples so that the game stays fresh, and this is going to be stuff like Decimate and Mystic Shot, I'd be like, okay, cool, now we can talk about that. But like right now we're having so many conversations about so many potential things that seems to not be very useful. So I ended up tweeting at them asking for specific questions. What do we want rotation to accomplish? How do we hope that rotation will accomplish that? And what's the difference between rotating and doing just like a ban list or balancing, right? And that's sort of where I'm at right now, is I feel like we need more information on this before we can actually talk about it and sort of figure out what we need to do. Because yeah, right now people are freaking out about it and we just don't know what's going on. announced rotation in an interview years ago, but he thought it would be after we had way more cards. Yeah, it's always been understood that there was going to be rotation in LOR, but it kind of feels like, I mean, again, this is speculation because Riot hasn't talked to us. It kind of feels like Riot's just like, everyone else is doing rotation. Every other card game does rotation, so we should do rotation too. And as somebody who doesn't come from other card games, I come in, I'm like, okay, but why? Like, why are we doing rotation? What are we looking to accomplish? And I think that there could be good reasons for it, but it feels like they're skipping that part, right? Like, I think that this should be like literally step number one when you start talking about implementing rotation. What is the point? What is the point of rotation? Why are we doing this? What are we hoping to accomplish? And then once we establish that, then we can talk about like, you know, what it's good, you know, whether it's good, whether it's bad, what sort of things that needs to happen and how they should approach it. But right now it's just, you know, it's very unclear what's going on. Yeah. Points to sell more cards. So I agree that in Hearthstone and in Magic, the whole point of rotation, and nobody wants to admit it, the whole point of rotation is to push extra product, right? They want to sell cards. They want to sell packs because that's how they monetize their game. But Legend of Runeterra doesn't monetize their game through packs, right? There are no packs in this game. You cannot buy packs. You buy specific cards, and you get so much stuff for free that there's no way in hell that this is being motivated by them trying to sell cards. Like, there's no way that is genuinely why, right? So there needs to be other reasons why this is happening and why Riot is doing this. There have to be. League remakes champions. It's nothing new at this point, so why not remake cards that are not up to the game or more problematic? I think that they've done that, right? Like, there have definitely been champions that have been reworked, right? Like, Udyr basically got like half of a rework. Diana got like half of a rework. I think that like reworks could be good, which again is like why we need to find out specifically why Riot has decided that rotation is the best way to approach issues facing the game and what issues we're trying to fix. You don't understand the benefits of having a rotation in a digital card game? Like, what's the point? We could just update cards. I mean, I probably agree with you. Manage size of card pool? Who cares? Who cares? Why not rotate them out to give the game a fresh look on top of... See, and this is my issue, right? This is my issue is that people are coming in with 40 different reasons. 40 different reasons on why rotation's happening, but Riot hasn't said why rotation's happening. I don't give a fuck what Joe Schmo, who played MTG for 10 years, says about rotation. I really don't care. I really don't care. Because our game is very different from MTG. I want to know what Riot is doing and why Riot wants to do this rotation. I want to know what their plan is, because that's the only thing that matters here, right? I don't give a fuck about what MTG did. I just don't. I really just don't. You know? Terra TCG based. There's a bunch of MTG players. Yeah, but okay. But what I would say is that MTG is a very different game from Legend of Runeterra with very different monetization as well as gameplay, right? And I think that it should probably have different needs than something like MTG. And I think that if we are just blindly copying what MTG did, that seems problematic. I think that we should have reasons for the things that we do in this game, especially if rotating out stuff like champions is going to alienate some of your audience that's very invested in these champions or very invested in these archetypes. Yeah. How many cards go away? Yeah, I don't know. Buff and nerf card functions as a form of rotation anyway. I agree, and what's wrong with that? Like, let's be honest, Shot. Let's be honest. Fucking Papercraft Dragon got rotated out of this game, right? Papercraft Dragon ate a fat fucking rotation. And that shit is just not, that shit is not in the game right now. But if you want to play Papercraft Dragon, you can play it right now. You can queue it up. You can have an okay win rate with it. Why isn't that acceptable? Why isn't that okay? Like, why do we need to literally remove them from the game? I don't know. Because people enjoy that type of thing. I think if we're doing it just because MTG did it, then I think we need to reevaluate our approach, in my personal opinion. I think that we need to reevaluate our approach. Are so many people against rotation as an additional format? Every other long-term card game has it. You don't see how they think Runeterra continues with just adding new cards. I don't see how they couldn't continue with just adding new cards, A. B, our card pool isn't that big. It's not nearly as big as other games. People have talked about Hearthstone taking, like 3 or 4 years before it started to do rotation. And C, do we really think that Riot is just, like, going to support this, like, other third format? Just like they supported Singleton? I mean, I am of the opinion that anything that's not ladder or competitive isn't a real format. If there is not actual support for it, and, like, actual, buffs and nerfs and stuff for it, then, like, what's the point of the format? If the format is literally just a casual queue in client that people play sometimes, what's the point of the format? You are basically just deleting these cards from the game, in my opinion. Yu-Gi-Oh! Started 2K cards. We have 1,200. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't fucking rotate. Yu-Gi-Oh! Banned, like 10 cards? They banned, like, fucking infinite combos that they couldn't fucking deal with, right? They banned with, like, Yatagarasu Lock, which would just fucking, like, mill your opponent's entire hand and then skip their draw phase, right? Which, like, we've done that. That's what our balancing is. That's literally what balance in LoR is for. Easier for a development team to manage the balance of new cards that they're introducing, or reduce the size of the problem set? I mean, potentially. But, like, again, I want Riot to say this. I want Riot to say why. Because we can come up with 30 million responses and 30 million reasons. But I need Riot to say why. So we did get a response from Dan Felder. Dan is a game designer manager at Riot Games. Dan's a super cool guy on Twitter, by the way. He's responded to a lot of stuff. And I appreciate the hell out of him. And what I will say is, even though, a lot of people are, feeling very passionately about rotation and whether or not it should or shouldn't exist in the game, I think that the fact that Riot is willing to have this conversation with us is strictly a good thing. And I hope that people, when they're interacting with the devs, are, very cordial and aren't, being, like, assholes yelling at them, right? Because I think that this type of conversation is very good for us. But yeah. So this was in me talking about the ban list, right? It's like, what's the difference between this and a ban list? Because this doesn't really seem like rotation. It seems like a ban list. And if we're doing a ban list, why are we doing a ban list instead of just balancing the game like we have been, right? I mean, don't be an asshole. I know it's hard. It's hard. And he said, I guess one could consider rotation in other games like MTG to be kind of an auto ban list based on time since release. Terms can be fuzzy, but the goal is to be able to move cards out of the standard format in a flexible way, but keep them playable in an eternal format. So, that's great. I mean, this is like... What I would say is that I think there's a difference between rotation and a ban list, because I think that a ban list is very much a curated... It is very much a curated selection of cards that are being removed, whereas rotation is like, throwing out wholesale things, right? It is what it is, right? And then if the goal is to be able to move cards out a standard format in a flexible way, but keep them playable in eternal format. So again, this comes back to why? What's the plan? What's the idea? Why are we rotating cards out of the standard format? And then, like, is this eternal format, like, actually going to get support? Is this going to be something we can play competitively? Is there going to be, like, a ladder for this? Are there going to be balance changes for an eternal format? What's going on, right? And I think that we need more information, right? So I responded with, appreciate you responding. Can you speak to what types of cards will be pulled out and what the goal of pulling them out would be? And I haven't gotten a response to that. A couple of other people have responded. Kingsgrave was talking about... champions being rotated out of the main game mode. This is how games with rotation... I'm personally concerned about champions being rotated out of the main mode because of how many games with rotations end up having a strictly balanced standard, and a Wild West hellscape is wild. Definitely something we'll keep an eye on. A lot of rotation considerations exist beyond pure power too. Example, it's really hard to get into old games with eternal formats because you have to learn so many vocab terms and mechanics all at once. Which is like a weird... That's like a weird response. Because, like, are we going to rotate out, like, Scout? Are we rotating out Scout? Are we rotating out Flow? Like, are we rotating out keywords? Like, I don't... Is this really a consideration? I don't know. Maybe. Again, I don't think that we have enough cards in the game for that to, like, be a worry, but maybe it is. Rotating out pink region? Yeah, just actually rotate out the entire pink region for Ishtal, chat. We're getting Ishtal. But yeah, I don't know. It's very strange in their wording. It's very strange in their communication. And I think that mainly I just want more information on what Riot wants out of rotation. Why are we rotating? What are we trying to rotate? What are we trying to accomplish? And why is this different from just balancing cards, right? That's what I would like. I just want information. I want this base information. So that we can then build off of that and be like, okay, so this is Riot's goal. This is what they're trying to go for. So now we can talk about that goal. We can talk about it through that lens. We can talk about if we feel like that's necessary or if their approach to it is accomplishing that goal, right? We can't even start to have a conversation before we know why things are happening. We can't even start talking about it until we know why things are happening. Balancing a smaller pool is easier. So again, if that's their goal, I want Riot to say that as their goal. Do you think making Fiora 3-2 is a better solution than rotating around a primary competitive mode? Yes. Floppy, I would absolutely 100% prefer 3-2 Draven in the game that I play instead of 3-3 Draven in the game that I don't play. Absolutely. I want my cards to be playable. I want to be able to play my cards. Draven got nerfed as he was like the best fucking thing. Do you think that in a rotation, Draven would have got nerfed, or would he have gotten fucking rotated out? I don't want to live in the world where they're just fucking rotating out cards instead of trying to balance them. Fiora's come back multiple times as a 3-2. That's just not true. Like, Fiora has absolutely come back multiple times as a 3-2. And I think that the ability for cards to come back into the meta is a good thing, and something I would prefer to be in the game. I see Nami's text get completely changed instead of just moving Nami to a different format. How is this different than just deleting Nami? How is this different from just deleting Nami? And then, I'm sorry, you can't balance around Nami. You can't balance around her at all. So you're going to move her to the Eternal format where she's just going to wreak havoc with all the new cards? What the fuck are you talking about, man? What the fuck are you talking about? Do you think that's going to be better? There's no shot, dude. I'm not reading this shit, dude. Do you think that's going to be fun? I don't think that, like, increasing the power level is, like, in, like, a fucking Eternal format. Who's that for? Literally, who is that for? The fucking casual players that are, like, really like their favorite card, Nami. So they're gonna go try and queue up whatever. You know, the people who really want to play their Fiora. So they want to queue up old Fiora in their Eternal format. And then they get dumpstered by fucking Nami with all the new cards. I don't know, man. I just want context. I want Riot's context on why we're doing this. Turning TF and Nami into unplayability is way less interesting than just removing them from the format. What does that even mean? We should delete them from the game instead of nerfing them. Oh my god. I don't know, man. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a constant problem with its one format where Surprise, this card from 2005, suddenly became an issue in... Who cares? You know what? If this happened in Legend of Runeterra, we can fix the card. We can balance the card. We don't have to reprint it. We don't have to errata it. We can fucking change it. We are playing a digital card game where if something comes up as an issue, you can change it. The creatures in that picture? I think it's a goblin, brother. Goblin these nuts. Oh my god. Bold of you to assume Riot knows what they're doing. So again, if they're doing this just because other games have done rotation, so we need to do rotation and we haven't thought through this, I think that when Riot absolutely, I guarantee you that they have had a meeting where they fucking, on the fucking whiteboard, they put up there, why do we want to do rotation? What is the goal? What is the goal that we're trying to accomplish? And what does it look like? I guarantee you, this was like step number 1. So like, I just want Riot to share to us what their goals are, right? Otherwise, if we're just like doing this without knowing why we need to do a fucking rotation, I don't know, man. It's what the fuck? There have to be goals. There have to be reasons why we're doing this. We have to. There have to be. If they haven't told us, they don't want us to know. I am leaning towards them just sucking at communication. I am much more likely to lean towards them just sucking at communication instead of them willfully not wanting us to know. There's no shot, man. There's no shot, because that type of thing gets really scary. 2 hours. Damn that need for instant gratification over something they have to convene about. I'm not saying that I need an answer right fucking now, right? That's at what point did I say that? I'm saying that we should have gotten this information from step 1, and before we can have a conversation about rotation, we need these base level things answered. That's my opinion. But yeah. Boggets or Rigby? Yeah, seasonal champion? But yeah. Try to get a feel for all the nuance and edge case of reactions might exist. I hope not. I hope not. I hope that they had an idea of what they want rotation to be. I hope that they didn't come to the fucking community and say, we're gonna do rotation, by the way. And then they just like get back behind the blast shield and they're like peeking in. Okay, so Twitter really wants this type and Reddit really wants this type. No shot, dude. No shot. They have to have a base level, man. There has to be a base level. There has to be a base level. I agree with you on your points, but you don't think Riot is technically obligated to tell us? For sure, they don't have to tell us. But I'm just saying, they're shooting themselves in the fucking foot if they come out and they just rile up the entire community with their communication that hasn't had any of these base level things going on. So they're just like pissing everybody off and then going radio silent. Like, I agree with you, they don't have to tell us anything. But like, I mean... I don't know, man. Release the exact or more number of cards rotated to balance everything out. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not enough support. But I just, again, it would be crazy to me if there was not literally at some point a meeting that had people like Dave here and had like Ruben in there and like probably a couple game designers. There's absolutely been a meeting where they all came in and they talked about their goals here, right? And if there wasn't, that's really fucking weird, you know? That's just really fucking weird. The meeting happens next week. Yeah, meeting's actually for noon on Friday, so, you know. Because if they haven't had that meeting, then why are they out here talking about fucking rotation, dude? Why are they telling us about rotation if they haven't even had that meeting yet? I don't know, man. If your $14 Talia skin gets rotated, you're gonna flip. See, that's the other thing, right? Is like, from a monetization standpoint, I think that people are going to be really worried about buying skins for champions that they won't be able to play in like the format that they care about.